zoo, lies and deceit. If not for the coming of IPOB, of Radio Biafra, all of you would have lived and died in the ignorance that Ojukwu caused a war. That's what they were writing. Britain helped them to write it. Ojukwu was a rebel, a secessionist, because we had no media. That is why they're paying Facebook billions upon billions of US dollars to stop this truth from coming out. Did Ojukwu cause any war? Gowon is alive, go and ask him. Did Ojukwu cause any war? Ojukwu went and negotiated restructuring with you in Aburi. You came back, Britain told you not to agree because Britain realized that all the component units of Britain knows that if you go back to regionalism, you will have economic growth. The country will do very well. But Britain doesn't want it. That was why they even instigated the Nzogwu coup, so-called Nzogwu coup, saying they will bring Awolowo to become the head of state. They knew what was going to happen. They wanted to truncate the economic miracle of Dr. Michael Opa. But what I'm telling you are fast. Go and investigate for yourself. In the East, you had the fastest growing economy in the whole world, over 40% every year. In the West, Awolowo was performing, doing very well. You had all those massive industries in the North. You even had Alamajiris that they were all doing very well. Britain said, no, for us to control these people, we need to impoverish them. Let us introduce this war. There was a coup by Nzogwu. And after that, there was the massacre of, as usual, massacre of our people in the North. Ojukwu said, I have to secure my land and my people. They said, no, let's go to Aburi to discuss it. To tell you how foolish Nigerians are. They're very foolish. That same nonsense you're asking for now was discussed many years ago. Ojukwu sat down in Aburi with Gowon and decided that regionalism was the best way forward. Constitution. Be on your own and pay tax to the central government, as they have in America, as they have even in Britain. Britain, you have Scotland that is almost independent. Wales, the same thing. Everybody is free. But Britain doesn't want the same thing they're enjoying in Nigeria. Why? Ask yourself that question. Anybody telling you about one Nigeria is your enemy. I'll prove it to you now. Ojukwu negotiated devolution, regionalism. The North will be on their own, the West on their own, even Midwest on their own, and then the East on their own. It's the same one Nigeria. On their way to the airport, before they boarded the aircraft, a call came from Lagos, from the British High Commissioner in Lagos, to Gowon, telling Gowon not to agree. After having signed the agreement, that same Gowon you're looking at today, God kept me alive so that he can witness the destruction he will bring upon that very zoo called Nigeria. Gowon said no. Do you know all the journalists in Nigeria, none of them have ever gone to Gowon to ask him, why did he say no to Aburi? Aburi was restructuring. None of those agitating for restructuring right now has ever gone to Gowon or gone to Nigeria to say, but Ojukwu negotiated restructuring. What happened? They came back and they said no. Ojukwu said, okay, so you want to continue to kill my people all over the place? No. Because of that, I'll declare Biafra. Today, they have brainwashed all of you with the perverse notion and thinking that somehow Ojukwu is responsible for causing a war, when opposite is the case. If not now, that after many years of hammering on this very topic, it has now sunk into the skull of the people that Gowon was the aggressor, not Ojukwu. That's how Nigeria is, always blaming the victim. And we lost over 5 million people during that very genocidal war. They killed over 5 million Biafrans. Wanted to wipe us away from the face of this very earth. But we survived it, and we are here today. Those they gave birth to, they have come. And this time with a wrath that you cannot even begin to imagine.
All right, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're watching from. Welcome to this. Welcome to this. If you are joining, kindly share the video and perhaps invite others to join. Share the video, invite others to join. Very, very important. I have to take another break. Therefore, I will leave you with this. Remember that what we're talking about today is literally we're talking about the interview granted by Barrister Ejiofor yesterday because I have been off this topic of this shenanigan between the IPOB, Mazen Namde Kano siblings, and other people who have sprout out from IPOB doing their own things. You know, for me to basically reflect on this matter again, there is a reason, and that reason, it is not going to be my basically everyday topic, but I believe we need to basically talk about this so that people may understand exactly what's going on. Because the interview basically, shocked me what I was hearing from that interview. Of course, at some point I got bored. I didn't want to entertain. They said, he said, has said. I never wanted to entertain them anymore. So I just went off this topic. But that interview basically made me want to talk about it again. What is the status of IPOB in Nigeria? What is the importance of organization IPOB in Nigeria? How relevant is Nnamdi Kanu without IPOB? How relevant is IPOB without Nnamdi Kanu? So these are the things we are going to talk about. I just want you to just grab your seat while we navigate these issues, because they are very, very important issues that we need to talk about. And you are going to hear it from the point of someone who is not in alignment with anybody, any party. I'm non aligned because in things like this, I'm always non aligned. That will enable me to tell you the truth, whether you are on this side or on the other side. You will hear the truth. And the truth of the matter is that we must find out how important is that IPOB as an organization, as long as there is still something called Biafra struggle under the leadership of Nnamdi Kanu, and how important it is to basically acknowledge the work of Nnamdi Kanu, regardless of your position or regardless of who you are, whether you are the siblings or whether you are, the follower. The most important thing is that there is always organizational structure that is laid out and that must be followed, and there is always rules and regulations of the organization that should be followed. And there is also now the big elephant in the room, Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, who is in a place where no one is able to reach out to him to get your own first-hand response regarding some certain issues. Therefore, there is a saying, o nwere egwu Gozie Okeke gụrụ, ọ sị inye ruo mmadụ ka onye ruo mụ ojikọta, biko were aka gị nyekena m ya, onye nwe m Jesus. So that thing is, when you send a message through someone, they will add some spices towards it sometimes. And sometimes people would there is no way they wouldn't add spices towards it. But it is very important that you get this first-hand information directly so that you will not dilute it. Therefore, we are going to talk about it after this break. And there is something very important in this image that is in front of you. You will see a man on this image wearing a red cap. It is said that nwoke a bụ nwoke echiri echichi na South Africa, who portray himself as a Eze Igbo na South Africa, which is something that is very crazy. I don't know why. I'm not if our people Jedi believe, like sometimes, like I can categorically tell you, this is stupidity, because I cannot imagine for the life of me why would a person aspire to be a king in another man's land. Dude, if you want to be a king, go to your village and be the king. You don't need to be a king in another man's land, regardless of how you want to perceive it. And you decided to be a king, and it is the time where people are literally crying for the xenophobic activities in South Africa. Then you decided to now, add some fuel into the fire by making yourself a king. That is nonsense. Like, I don't know why our people are so crazy to the point that they don't read the room. You cannot go to a place where you do not belong, a place where you know that you're supposed to stand with one leg, because the people around you doesn't like you. They don't like you. There is a perception that you are the problem in that particular place. There is a perception that as long as you are a Nigerian, you are perceived as a criminal, as a problem, and you cannot really blame those who said so, because even your politicians have made the world to see you as less human. They have made the world to undermine your capability. Therefore, they have now decided that the sins, or perhaps will I say that the crime committed by black Africans, Nigerians, literally are animal crimes, or the crime committed by the locals or the owners of the land is basically human crime, and animal crimes are not supposed to be dealt with the same attitude as that of human crime. Then you see those things are happening, you perceive the elements of this hatred, you continue to basically add fuel into the fire. This is uncalled for. This is not recommendable. You cannot stand for this. This is bullshit. In a simple word, you cannot go out there to go and aspire to be a king in a place where you are not loved, in a place where people hate you so much that if they get you one on one, they are going to throw you stone till you die. Why do you aspire to go and be a king in that place? We saw last year the one of Ghana, they call Ezendibo in Ghana, how Ghanaians started making a fuss about it. And then eventually, we can understand that being a king wherever you are does not mean that you are trying to take over the land. This is a fact that people must understand. Our people themselves, they understand, they do these things, that they go out there once they feel like they have this spirit of leadership and calling their people together in an event where there is a problem. They can be addressed by one person. They can easily name themselves king. It does not actually mean that they are trying to take over a country or trying to take over a place where they are domiciled. It is just because of that hatred that is already at these people. That name called Nigeria, once you hear that name, you will see, invader. Once they hear the name, they will hear invader, because the name Nigeria is rotten to the core. And then sometimes you might not blame anyone who basically hate that name when they hear it, because you can see the activities of your politicians out there, what they are displaying out there. Then you will realize that it is not about it is not really about the ordinary people. It is about the perception of your politicians and the type of politics they play with the lives of people. Then you see people now having issues because you become a king in their land. Truth to be said, you cannot run away from your country, from where you come from, in order to go out there to make ends meet, to go out there to make money, or to go out there to chase a greener pasture. You go there to make yourself a king. No, it is not done. People will perceive you somehow. People will eventually, think that you are basically trying to take over their country. People will think like that. You cannot have two captains in a boat. Where you are, basically, where you make yourself a king, there is already a king there, and you cannot take that away. And you making yourself a king without the knowledge of such king, it's an insult to that king of that area where you are. This is not done. We call a spade a spade. At least if you are doing it within Nigeria, we know that they aspire to be one Nigeria. So you can literally try to be king anywhere you want to be because they call themselves one Nigeria. But once you step outside the borders of Nigeria, there is no way you are going to tell me that it makes sense that you crown yourself a king. We can understand that the wife is a South African who become a queen. Of course, she will be happy. Everyone will be happy to be a royal. But at the end of the day, you are the target. You are not supposed to make yourself a king. You know, you look for somewhere out of all places. You chose South Africa to make yourself a king. Dude, we should understand in South Africa, Nigerians are hated so much. They are hated, and not just really hated. There is a lot of bad reputation there of Nigerians, but that does not basically negate the fact that they are hated in outside of the reputation, because this is individual reputation. Hence, I gave you an analogy of, regarding the crime of other people, animal crime, but regarding the crime of South Africans, human crime, and they cannot be dealt with in the same energy. You are animal that commit animal crime, and you will be treated like animal. That's why you see many videos that where they are treating people like animal, beating people up just because they are having a business. So in this regard, you do not add fuel into fire, right? If there is a crime, we have, I've been following this scenario of illegality of you people being in that country. I discovered that it has nothing to do with people being illegal in the country. It has everything to do with they do not want black people in the country. That is what it boils down to say. Because there is some video I was listening to this afternoon, and I saw that video. It was about a white man in South Africa talking about, the illegal people in South Africa. So when I listened to that video, I was actually it was so crazy, because the person literally said that the voters, that these illegal people should go. And at the end of the day, I'm going to play that video for you. Then you will hear it yourself. Then you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Pay attention.
If our new Minister of Home Affairs, Leon Schreiber, has a new Minister of Home Affairs, Leon Schreiber, if our new Minister of Home Affairs, Leon Schreiber, has his way, then undocumented migrants into South Africa, whether they work in restaurants or in domestic environment or in civil society or roaming, will in fact be chucked out of the country. Now that's nationalism. That's not xenophobia. That is the minister saying, let us ensure that jobs are going to South Africans and to legal migrants who are applying for asylum in South Africa. Absolutely. Let us ensure that undocumented migrants coming into South Africa, for whatever reason, and we understand how pathetic their situation in their own country actually is, but we've got our own problems. Let us understand that those undocumented migrants coming into South Africa are taking South African jobs. The argument has always been that South Africans don't want to work at those jobs. They're not happy to be laborers any longer. They're not happy to work on gardens or be domestics or work in waiting positions in restaurants. But that's nonsense. The average South African who is under the age of 20 or 25 are looking for work, are hungry for work, are prepared to work, are productive, are educated, but remain unemployed, and principally because of those migrants coming into the country. Statistics South Africa would tell you a different story. They're telling you that, in fact, we don't have a problem with undocumented migrants in this country. They are a minority compared to the rest of the population. The real question is, who are they gathering their statistics from? Undocumented migrants are not going to answer surveys. They're not going to say, we're here illegally, and we're working, and we're making money, and we're sending that money back to Zimbabwe or Kenya or Ghana or wherever in Africa we've come from. They're not going to own up to that. They're not going to say it. When Statistics South Africa come knocking, those people are going to fast disappear. So the bottom line is Stats South Africa do not know their you-know-what from their you-know-what. The bottom line is we have a migrant crisis. Ask our hospitals whether we have a migrant crisis. Ask our hospitals whether the medicine and the medical treatment are not going to people who in fact are not South Africans. Now, as Minister Schreiber issues this warning to undocumented migrants, irrespective of where they're coming from, there are a number of political parties who obviously are going to have to start shaking in their boots. Because the reality is they've depended on these undocumented migrants for votes, for support politically. So
now, have you seen where he contradicts himself? This is not a South African. This is a white guy. He can never be a South African. We don't have white people as Africans, right? So they are basically visitors or invaders. So basically, you know, if you listen fully to this speech of this guy, you'll find out he's perhaps a Portuguese. And then he said they are undocumented and went again said that they are used for voting. How can someone who is undocumented be voting? How will someone, he said political parties are using these undocumented people to actually garner votes. So if you check this scenario, you will understand that this has nothing to do with documentation and undocumentation. It has everything to do with an agenda being pushed for Black people to be hated across South Africa so that maybe people like him will rise. And this is also to disgrace the leadership of Black leadership in South Africa. That's exactly what you will perceive in this. For him to say that the illegal, undocumented foreign nationals are being used for voting. Before you register a vote in any country, you must be a citizen of that country. You must have, identification. You must have documents. So how South Africa is technological advanced country. It is not like, it is a technological advanced country. So it's not a country where someone will create one, things like what he says, that political parties are using those undocumented migrants to, get votes. That is crazy. That is to show you that they are part of the agenda. Now, they are basically, laying low and sending people who look like you to be the one attacking you so that you will hate on those who look like you. Because it looks like every NGO that profess their desire to attack foreign nationals of African descent in South Africa, they always flourish, they always excel, because it looks like they are funded. Who are funding them? You find political parties being part of this shenanigan, telling people that foreigners are the reason why they don't have a job. So this is crazy, and it is a lie that has been told to these people. So they are acting on it. Upon that, coming back to the, to the point, you go ahead to go and make yourself a king in a place where you are hated, where there is a perception that you are the problem, the reason why people does not have a job. He made a claim as well that if you go to the hospitals, you will find out that there is no medicine due to the foreign nationals. I am just actually reflecting on this matter. It is not really what I am supposed to talk about, but I feel like I have to reflect on it because I've been engaging this matter on Twitter. I've been seeing a lot of posts and some inboxes people are sending to me about this situation. That's why I'm able to talk about it. Now, listen to a medical practitioner, right? This is a medical practitioner in South Africa. Then the white guy was claiming that it is because of foreign nationals that they do not have medicine in the hospitals. Now listen to a medical practitioner who works in the hospital, not just work in the hospital. She will introduce herself. Listen.
An issue because we have foreign nationals, even in the village where there are not many foreign nationals. They choose along. There are no medicines.
Exactly.
So akadoba nemakai because agekho foreigner ngale. You see, so Operation Dudula should be engaging in the administrative roles and trying to do a root cause analysis. It may be part of it, but it's not entirely the issue that we have foreign nationals that are accessing our services. No, it's not.
Because they are busy, like there was even an article and a video where Action SA was blocking foreign nationals from accessing Hillbrow Clinic.
Yes.
And they were saying over 80% of the patients are illegal foreign nationals in that clinic. So they were blocking them that if you don't come with your ID or a passport or some form of documentation that you are legal in SA.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the legality of your your status in the country. It has everything to do with you are being perceived as the reason why maybe the government is not sharing enough money to the citizens. That's what you are perceived to be. Like, that's exactly what I have seen that is going on. It has nothing to do with whether you are legal or illegal. They do not want you. And this is to tarnish the image of a black government that took over the country 3 decades ago. So, but they wouldn't understand where these things are coming from. There is also a displacement happening in the Middle East, and their safe haven is South Africa. And these, they won't see the problem. They won't see any problem. But if you are from Sudan and your safe haven becomes South Africa, definitely you will be perceived as a bad guy because you have a black skin like them. So if you are from Middle East, or maybe you are from Israel or Zionist, you have access to go into the country, even though the country does not align with them in this conflict. So you see the conundrums, you see the situation, how sticky it gets. So it has nothing to do with your illegality, it has everything to do with there is a theory that has been pushed out there that you must be isolated, as including the some of the government officials are making use of this to basically garner support from people and get funding. Who are the funders? Those are the things you need to ask. So mostly some of these black South Africans that are actually taking part in some of these activities, they are just naive and uninformed. They are not really your enemy. The real enemy is actually on the periphery, playing the drum that those people are dancing on. They are not your enemy, and they should never be your enemy, because we know the power of colonialism and the power of neo-colonialism. So it is all for Africans to turn their back on South Africa. That's exactly the plan, but I will not actually say it further. But you, King, you should basically go to the media as soon as you can and apologize to South Africans for you making yourself, adding fuel into fire. Because of course you will basically know exactly what is going on. And I cannot actually, regardless of whether there is a love for South Africans or against you or against other people, it doesn't give you the right to go and crown yourself a king in another man's land. Who are you ruling? Who are you ruling? That move will make people to be suspicious of you, because they might not understand whether you are a king of, King Cobra, or you are King Snake. I don't know what king you are, because we don't recognize a king that is not from the land. So maybe you are King Cobra. If you are King Cobra, you tell them because we don't recognize this type of thing from in our land. We only recognize king from a kindred that we know that is actually on the ground zero. That is an insult. You wouldn't like that if someone come from South Africa and be crowned a king in your village. I don't know. You might not have a problem with it because you have open mind and you travel. You have seen 99, but there are some people who are still in the dark. They haven't traveled. They haven't seen anything. They don't know people's behavior and people's culture, how they perceive things and how they behave. They just see what they see and judge it the way they understood it. And you cannot blame them. So you need to remove that cap on your head and apologize to the owners of the country because you are not a king. If you want to be a king, you go home and be a king. And if I check you very well, you might be part of those who aspire to be a one Nigeria, and yet you are running away from it. So I'm sorry. It's not because I hate you as a person. I don't hate you as a person, but that behavior that you basically displayed does not look wise because it is not good for you doing that. That's a bad precedent that you are setting there because you are provoking people. And now there is probably a match. What if that match actually go down to chaos? How will you feel yourself? You wouldn't feel good. And this is not whom we are. And I rest my case there. And I urge South Africans, your African brothers and sisters are not your enemy. Treat crime as a human crime and deal with crime like you deal with human crime. Don't see other people's crime like animal crime. They are all human crime. They should be dealt with like human crime. Government of South Africa should step up to deal with crime since it is about crime and illegality that they actually hold on to. But it is not about illegality because I've seen a shop owner on a video showing them the documents. They flogged this guy with something, they beat him up, they disgraced him and asked him to close his shop. We saw that. So it has nothing to do with legality and illegality. It has everything to do with self-hatred. And we cannot make that up. So I salute you guys for listening to this. Let's go back to the real business. Before we go down to the real business, I want you to listen to this again because they will always make us believe that we are the aggressor and they are actually the real people.
It must come. There are two things plaguing them in the zoo: lies and deceit. If not for the coming of IPOB, of Radio Biafra, all of you would have lived and died in the ignorance that Ojukwu caused a war. That's what they were writing. Britain helped them to write it. Ojukwu was a rebel, a secessionist, because we had no media. That is why they're paying Facebook billions upon billions of US dollars to stop this truth from coming out. Did Ojukwu cause any war? Gowon is alive, go and ask him. Did Ojukwu cause any war? Ojukwu went and negotiated restructuring with you in Aburi. You came back, Britain told you not to agree because Britain realized that all the component units of Britain knows that if you go back to regionalism, you will have economic growth. The country will do very well. But Britain doesn't want it. That was why they even instigated the Nzogwu coup, so-called Nzogwu coup, saying they will bring Awolowo to become the head of state. They knew what was going to happen. They wanted to truncate the economic miracle of Dr. Michael. But what I'm telling you are fast. Go and investigate for yourself. In the East, you had the fastest growing economy in the whole world, over 40% every year. In the West, Awolowo was performing his own miracle as well. Even in the North, Ahmadu Bello and Tafawa Balewa were doing very well. You had all those massive industries in the North. You even had Alamajiris that were employed in the North, meaningfully employed, gainfully employed. They were all doing very well. Britain said, no, for us to control these people, we need to impoverish them. let us introduce this war. There was a coup by Nzogu. And after that, there was the massacre of, as usual, massacre of our people in the north. Ojukwu said, I have to secure my land and my people. They said, no, let's go to Aburi to discuss it. Ojukwu went to Aburi and agreed restructuring. That's something now you're asking for. To tell you how foolish Nigerians are. They're very foolish. That same nonsense you're asking for now was discussed many years ago. Ojukwu sat down in Aburi with Gowon and decided that regionalism was the best way forward, restructuring, going back to who you were, 1963 Constitution, 1960-1963 Constitution. Be on your own and pay tax to the central government, as they have in America, as they have even in Britain. Britain, you have Scotland that is almost independent, Wales, the same thing, everybody is free, but Britain doesn't want the same thing they're enjoying to happen in Nigeria. Why? Ask yourself that question. Anybody telling you about one Nigeria is your enemy, I'll prove it to you now. Ojukwu negotiated devolution, regionalism. The North will be on their own, the West on their own, even Midwest on their own, and then the East on their own. It's the same one Nigeria. On their way to the airport, before they boarded the aircraft, a call came from Lagos, from the British High Commissioner in Lagos, to Gowon, telling Gowon not to agree, after having signed the agreement. That same Gowon you're looking at today, God kept me alive so that he can witness the destruction he will bring upon that very zoo called Nigeria. Gowon said no. Do you know all the journalists in Nigeria, none of them have ever gone to Gowon to ask him, why did he say no to Aburi? Aburi was restructuring. None of those agitating for restructuring right now has ever gone to Gowon or gone to Nigeria to say, but Ojukwu negotiated restructuring. What happened? They came back and they said no. Ojukwu said, okay, so you want to continue to kill my people all over the place? No. Because of that, I'll declare Biafra. Today, they have brainwashed all of you with the perverse notion and thinking that somehow Ojukwu is responsible for causing a war, when opposite is the case. If not now, that's after many years.
Now, this is exactly what has been going on between us and the Nigeria as a whole, because between the Fulanese, which is the minority group, Hausas, which is part of the majority, Yorubas, which is in the in the middle, the Igbos, which is the highest population in Nigeria, but they will never tell you that because they have manipulated the census in order to make sure that an Igbo man does not get into power. Therefore, they have to combine the North. Remember that the northern Nigeria were very loyal to Britain. Hence, pre-colonialism, they had already established a system of government which has quadis, had emirs, and have civil servants, overseen by the Fulanese. When Britain actually saw that system, they saw that this is a central system I can use to manipulate or to indirect rule the northern Nigeria. And Britain utilized that mechanism to indirect rule the northern Nigeria. And ever since, they were able to make the Fulanese, because using their quadis, which is their religious leaders, in order to go in, do religious practice, what is called, what do you call evangelism, convincing people, but in their own way. It is not just evangelism, it was a crusade against the Hausa people. So that crusade that they carried out against the Hausa people was using religion to basically put them under their control. Islamic religion, that's what they use in order to bring these people to their control. And they did it, and it worked for them perfectly. Hence, the Hausa man was seen as Hausa Fulani. And now you find the Hausa people today crying. Fulanese in number is barely 15 million. Hausa people are more than 40 million. Yorubas are more than 50 million. Igbos is more than 65 million. But they will never accept to that figures because those figures scares them the most. Hence, Britain need that manipulation of these numbers to keep the status quo going. And it is in favor of the Fulanis and the Yorubas. Many people believe that it was Hausas who are actually benefiting, because when we hear about the northern Nigeria, we mostly believe that it is about northern Nigeria Hausa people, because when you really think about the northern Nigeria, you think Hausa people. Fulanis are the minority who came in using their political manipulation to get stuck on the body of the Hausas like a tick, that they are not, to the point that they started answering Hausa Fulani. They emasculated Hausas at some point. Hence, you see Hausa people now waking up to, from their slumber and challenging their status quo. Now, but these people who are in forefront, they are also more political than reasonable. They are literally more political than reasonable. There is a guy that I just made a video about him recently. The reason why I made that video, he was actually talking about the Hausa people. This dude, he was talking about the Hausa people being used for the number to employ the Fulanis and other people into Nigeria political system, because they have the number. Fulani does not have. What Fulani has is the leadership. Now, you wouldn't tell me if election malpractices is not done, you wouldn't tell me the minority group will always take part in every part of leadership in the northern Nigeria. It is impossible, except if these people are basically asleep. So now they told us that we are minority in number. Give power to Hausa, because give power to Fulani, because Fulani established a power system, the power dynamic that enabled Britain to colonize the northern Nigeria freely without any problem. Because once you control the religion system, you control the political system in that area. Hence, you find Quran, religion, Islam in the constitution of Nigeria. Only Islamic religion was recognized by the constitution of Nigeria if the system was not built in order to create ethnic chauvinism. You will never see a constitution recognizing Islamic religion and Sharia law. There was nothing made mention of Christian law or anything the way Christian might actually live their life to avoid complications of the local laws or anything. But they recognize that Islamic person will have to live their life without interference of the mainstream. But in other places, the mainstream becomes the central way of their control. Maybe you find out it's not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing for people to have their religion as the mainstream, but especially when they introduce Sharia law. When they introduce Sharia law, that means every law that is going to be passed will be motivated by the teachings of Quran, right? So you are judged by Quran. We are now judged by a judge who will tell you no. If you bribe the judge, you will quote the law in another way. But if you are judged by Quran, right, it's already written. If they misread it, you go and read it. Therefore, a pedophile can easily go free. I'm not saying they are, but making an example. Pedophile can easily go free. But on the other side, that are governed by mainstream that can be biased at any time, it is now people who are seen as lesser people in the country, the southern Nigeria, because they have actually brought the Hausa people to their knees. Upon doing that, Britain loved it so much. Then they made them control the system. These things I'm telling you are basically a systemic something that we can demolish. Systemic something we could demolish. Nigeria was not colonized, in parallel. Every nook and crannies of Nigeria were not colonized in parallel. They were colonized individually because they were different people, right? Colonized individually, but at the end of the day, power dynamics was shifted to certain people who are the Fulanis, who were not indigenous people, because they had an arrangement with Britain at some point so that Britain will still establish their power of neo-colonialism whilst the Fulani do the oversight. Hence, the power has been on the hands of the Fulani. Yorubas are in the middle, not knowing which way to turn, because eventually they give them power, but with Fulani scrutinizing it, because of course, when Fulanis are not looking after the Yorubas will actually portray themselves to be the friends of the Igbos. When they portray to be your friend, Igbos are lovely people. We know they can be, crazy sometimes, but they are lovely people. They accept everyone. When Yorubas now want to use you to garner vote, to get attention of Fulanis, they just try to be friends with the Igbos. Remember, the number is going to change. Once the Yoruba aligns with the Igbo, Fulanis and the Hausas are actually on their own. Their number can never supersede this political number from the other side. That's why they use the Igbos relationship as a threat to the Fulanis. Hence, Fulani will give them power, unopposed. Now, the system is shaking. Hence, you see Tinubu, who made arrangement with the terrorists themselves, right? Which is the mostly Fulani terrorist, eventually is now not keeping the arrangement fully. Because number one, you must jail Nnamdi Kanu, who did anti-terrorist protest. You must jail him. He must be under our control so that, bring him to Sokoto to loyal these people, to make these people, make them fear. Because they want to instill fear in you so that you are going to be part of the system. As eventually, if you cannot beat the system, you have to join the system. So that's what they want to instill in you. You cannot beat the system. Therefore, you literally have to join the system. And if you join the system, you become a loyalist. A loyalist, you will become so loyal that the system will tell you how high you have to jump. In fact, you will ask the system, how high do I need to jump? That's exactly the psychology they are implementing in order to subdue the Igbo race from being the leader in the Nigeria. Now, I am so happy because the whole world, we are some Yorubas are going out there, another ethnic group are going out there to tell them that Igbos are the problem of Nigeria. Hence, there was a war in 1967. Igbos are never the problem. If Igbos were the problem of Nigeria, Igbos were not given chance to rule Nigeria. Igbos were given 20 pounds. 20 pounds, even if you have 100,000 pounds in your account or 1 million pounds in your account, you were given 20 pounds after the war, right? They were not allowed access to mainstream politics in Nigeria in the last 6 decades. Or will I say, to be politically correct, in the last more than 5 decades. They have never smelled the coffee. Again, after that, they will tell you that it is the Igbo coup. Igbo was the people, were the people who planned the coup in 1966. It was never Igbo coup. The Delta State man who was named Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogu. The Kaduna Nzogu was a military chief who led the coup that consists of the coup plotters that are from all ethnic groups in Nigeria. But the leader was a Delta man. And in Nigeria, they do not see Delta people as Igbos except when there is service delivery. Right? But they now name that Igbo coup because the Delta man happens to be really Igbo, right? But when it comes to political, benefit, Delta people are not seen as Igbo. But when it comes to reprimanding, Delta becomes Igbos because everything bad has to be thrown at the Igbo people to the point that they place many Igbos on survival mode. To the point, that's why most of the activities you hear, they tell you Igbo this, Igbo that. They know that we are at the survival mode, that people who were given 20 pounds after having 1 million pounds after the war, losing everything, their homes were confiscated, they will be in a survival mode so that they will portray to the world that these are the people who are the problem of Nigeria. Igbo man were able to do the miracle magic. From that 20 pounds, we built. Every business in Nigeria is mostly shared by Igbo man. Most strategic businesses in Nigeria are shared by Igbo man. But the only challenges we had, we do not have a systemic, business that we create where there will be many investors. Because segregation also becomes the order of the day. Inequality becomes the problem. Now it becomes a situation whereby it's a survival of the fittest. Now, lingering back to our struggle. The reason why I brought it now, I actually had to go through this route before coming back to the struggle, is that we have seen the problem in the leadership of the organization heading the struggle through Nnamdi Kanu. We have seen the challenges. We have seen that people are basically getting tired of accusations. People are accusing each other, problems, segregation, because everyone is on somehow. I don't know if everyone believes that we can be the one in front, or will I say that everybody really want to? It's becomes a conflict of interest. Money becomes first thing everyone think about. Benefit becomes first thing everyone think about. When you tell people their freedom, they start thinking of the benefit and the disadvantage they are going to receive if eventually they accept to go. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but they do not want to die. Again, taking us to the topic that we have. Nnamdi Kanu established an organization called IPOB. IPOB as an organization is registered in many parts of the world, including in UK, in US, in UAE, across Europe. IPOB is a registered organization that is led by Nnamdi Kanu, the man that was given a life sentence. 1 minute. Is chaired by Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. So today, Nnamdi Kanu was extraordinary rendition after kidnapped, tortured for 8 days in Kenya. And during this torture, we heard that the brother was aware of his kidnap. And we also understanding the rules of rendition and extraordinary rendition, how it can be stopped. Of course, if Nnamdi Kanu, it was reported that Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped in Kenya on time, people can protest so that they will delay the judgment, if there was any, to rendition him back to Nigeria. But no one told anyone. And on the side of the DOS, they also said that no one told them until Nnamdi Kanu is rendition. So in this regard, I can tell you that anybody who knows that Nnamdi Kanu was captured and eventually did not, raise an alarm, and eventually he was renditioned illegally, if I call you a suspect, you should not blame me. That is number one. Number two is that you find out that in IPOB today, there is a lot of, disagreement. Of course, there is a rule and regulation, code of conduct. They can suspend a member, they can hire a member. So with this code of conduct, we could say that there are disgruntled people out there who are members of IPOB, who is basically quarreling. You see them quarreling with the organization. Reason best known to them, because when you examine yourself, you will come out with a flying colors. But it is important for us to understand that if IPOB is a registered organization, there is a written rules and regulations that cannot be violated by anybody, regardless of who. Regardless of whether it is the leader of the organization, they cannot violate such rules and regulation. If there is a code of conduct that has been established and hierarchical, structure of the organization that is established, that rule must be followed at all time. It cannot be violated by anyone. If there is a hierarchical structure of the organization, that organization code of conduct cannot be violated at any time. It doesn't matter by who. If it is by the leader or by anybody that is related to the leader, because it will be seen as favorism or favoritism. Now, look at it in a broader perspective. Nnamdi Kanu created this organization, and there are members of the organization. There is a hierarchical structure of the organization made up of DOS. Now there are other, feeders, structures like representatives, continental representatives, and country representatives. So you see that these representatives, this is basically a power chain that is governed by a code of conduct, which is also, that code of conduct is command and control. It's under command and control, which is the central command is the leader. The commander is the leader. If it is command and control, commander becomes the leader. And if the leader is unavailable, the commander falls to the deputy leader, if there is a deputy leader. But in the organization of IPOB, of course, the deputy leader fell on the roadside. He's not part of the organization anymore, so they haven't been able to appoint a new deputy leader. Therefore, there is a parliament, which is the DOS, Department of State. Now, The leader of the organization right now is the commander-in-chief. He never appointed a deputy on before this issue of his kidnap happened. Therefore, the hierarchical, structure will eventually come together and they appoint a leadership, because he is not just absent, he is a kind of, well, I say maybe incapacitated is a very, strong word, but I'm using it for you to understand that he is not in a position to make certain decisions, right? He can make decisions, but to make some certain decisions whereby there is a conflict of interest amongst the people who goes to see him, and there is a conflict of interest on the other path as well. So this conflict of interest now begin to plague the the leadership of the organization. It begins to be a problem, bring division in the organization, to the point that they have to start suspending members of the organization, because there are some concerns that are being raised that are not addressed properly. Eventually, these concerns are going to be, it will boil down to people being disgruntled. Like I said, before. But being disgruntled does not should not make you to come out to start, castigating that organization. If you have the same goal and you know that the leader of this organization is in the hands of the enemy. The reason why I'm saying that is that we are supposed to have one goal. And if that goal is not working the way it should, if it is not working the way it should, we should not actually start fighting with each other. We need to strategize. Let's assume that one of the members of the DOS sold out, or maybe the highest officer in the DOS sold out, and the decisions he's making. And before you say he sold out, you should understand exactly whether you have evidence to it. You cannot just because of a decision they make, you say they sold out. You must have a concrete evidence. If you do not have it, forget it. Now, the highest office in the organization, who will have the power of attorney in the absence of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu and the absence of deputy, because DOS is supposed to be the structure that can appoint and basically fire a deputy president, right? Or even a president of the organization. DOS has the authority to fire or to suspend the deputy president, the president, because DOS is like a parliament. They can have a vote of no confidence and remove somebody, especially if the organization is registered with a constitution. Remember, every non-governmental organization in many developed world, they will be registered with a constitution. And that constitution now will give the government or the registry the power dynamics of the organization, how leadership is basically structured, so that if there is eventuality, appointment will be made. Immediately when appointment is made, addendum will be written towards that constitution to the gazette or to the registry. But if these things are not actually in that way, if it was not registered in that way, that means it can be a private business. And I am not saying it can be a private business because I want to be prejudiced against anybody, but I am saying it in the path of understanding hierarchical structure of a registered organization, non-governmental organization, for you to know if this is registered as a one-man, maybe private company, or registered as whatever it is registered as long as there is a structure that organization registry has, that this is how this organization operates, you cannot change that structure regardless of who you are, except if you apply and to make an addendum towards your constitution, initial constitution. That's how you will be able to achieve, except if you have a power of attorney, then you will be able to achieve that. And power of attorney is basically granted by the hierarchical structure, by those members of department of, is a department of DOS, Department of State, right? That Department of State is basically like organization chain that can unilaterally, not unilaterally, right? They cannot unilaterally make a decision. The leadership of the organization cannot unilaterally make a decision, but you need to consult with the DOS. Just like when president want to take a decision, he will consult with the, National Assembly. Then you have a red chamber, which is the vice and the president of the National Assembly, or what do you call them, Senate president. They will deliberate within themselves, and they come to a consensus, reach a consensus or agreement that it is going to be this way. Then the president of the National Assembly or the speaker, whoever, will now, gazette it and will pass it through to the executive. They pass the law. So in this regard, that is how this organization is supposed to be partially. And if it is like that, unilaterally, a leader does not make a decision, a unilateral decision in that organization. But if it is not, a leader can make a decision. Of course, it is something that is personal. Now, and there is no leader who is going to be influential or going to be, known if there is no organization behind him or her. If you are a leader, you do not have a solid organization, regardless of how many people follows you in the social media or outside of social media, you will understand that you are not going to be that relevant, especially when it comes to the, legal matters and, litigation. Not just that, problems, challenges. And we know very well that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu himself told us that he has an organization. He told us that he has hierarchical order of the organization. We told us his power dynamics, which is what I am going to play to you now, so that if you are educated, you don't need to be educated, right? You just need to be somehow in a corporate, in a corporate area so that of life, so that you will understand exactly what's going on. Mazen Nnamdi Kanu knew that he has to, explain to us his power dynamics in the organization. He made this voice you are going to watch right now. And in this voice, he told us whom we must adhere, listen to, follow, this and that. And he said it to us. Right now, any other thing Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is saying to us through a lawyer, in the interest of that lawyer or in the interest of the siblings, because if I play this video, we need to find out whether or not there is any place in this video that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu said we should listen to the brother, or we should listen to the wife, or we should listen to the mother or father or anybody. Of course, the parents are late. So we want to find out whether we will see that. If we do not see this, then I will address the matter.
that DOS says goes. Anybody not following orders from Chike Doziem from DOS, you will be removed from IPOB and sanctioned appropriately. You know, before we remove you without knowing where you are, this time around we will catch you before we remove you. Anything DOS says is what goes. Nzurumike is heading our reconciliation committee. If he calls you on the phone, you must listen to him and do as he says. He is our deputy head of Directorate of State, led by Mazi Chike Doziem. They are the highest decision-making body in IPOB. If that thing is difficult, then now refer it to me. Do you understand? Anything, if they call you on the phone, you don't return their call, or you're doing strong head, I will then believe that the zoo has brought you over and you'll be dealt with. Edo State, be warned. No dabbling in volunteer affairs or ESN affairs in Edo State. ESN is in Edo State for your information. And very soon work will commence there immensely. Work will commence. Edo State comes under Ikechubu as the Befalam coordinator. We run a disciplined movement more than anything. We value discipline more than anything else in the world. In IPOB, that's the only thing we have. That we are able to defeat the zoo and destroy the zoo is hinged on one thing, and that is discipline. If you know you cannot work for IPOB, you get out and join the Sabo. One day your judgment will come. We'll find out those hiding in Cotonou, those are hiding somewhere near Apite, near Swamp in River State. We'll find all of you. Not Igbo, I say River State because it comprises upland and coastal region. We'll find all of you. In Banke, they still have a police checkpoint.
Okay, this is exactly where I will place my judgment on. This is how we fought infiltrator. Because in an organization, as in one, we found a man onye kefe oluteya. If he get bring why kuwaka goto kununu eziazalaza. Stand in the truth, regardless of who is going to get hurt. Stand in the truth. And truth is the only thing we are going to use to achieve our freedom, not our emotions. Our emotions isn't going to get us freedom. It is the truth and the strategies. That's the only thing that will enable us to do so. Other than that, we are playing games, and that games we are playing is going to eventually affect all of us in parallel. Now look at it. If we are told by the leader like this, when he was a free man, right? He was a free man, he never said someone should tell us. And we listen to it, regardless of whether or not you are IPOB member, but you are a Mazen Nnamdi Kanu's follower and a fan. If you love what he does, you should love IPOB. And if you love IPOB, you should be able to contribute to the growth of the organization. Now, to be honest with this, Nnamdi Kanu stated the chain of his command, his hierarchical structure. He tell you that Chike Doziem is the head of the Directorate of State in IPOB. And then Nzurumike is the deputy. Now let's talk about these individuals that he mentioned. If they begin to go offline, if they begin to do things that are not supposed to be done, how is the organization supposed to, come together and deal with the situation? Number one, Nnamdi Kanu is in prison, a political prisoner, right? Just because he protested against Fulani terrorism and the oligarch that has taken Nigeria from great to, to disgrace. Like he said that there was economic miracle of Michael Okpara, and among other Nigerians who were doing well pre their stupid new Nigeria of 1999 constitution. So all these things, we understand it that if Chike Doziem is falling out of line, and you have evidence that this guy is falling out of line, or this guy is no longer capable of discharging his duty because of bias, or because maybe he's scared, or because, of course, what they did to Nnamdi Kanu is to scare everyone. But if you are really scared, you need to step aside. You need to voluntarily step aside, because we must be brave like the person who established the organization. Now, if you perceive that this person is not discharging their duty, there is supposed to be, a way of communicating this to the organization. If they cannot handle it, the best thing you could do, there was a time I basically respected Ikem Guruagu. Ikem Guruagu told us that he resigned from IPOB. He resigned. And nobody knows why Ikem Guruagu resigned until he started his shenanigan. Nnamdi Kanu Jisia Nnamdi Kanu Eseria. That's where he lost his respect from. Because if you feel like you are not doing anymore, or you are so disgruntled that you cannot continue with this organization until Nnamdi Kanu returns, you resign and disassociate yourself from the organization. Perhaps Asina silent is actually the dangerous weapon against a wrong person. If you resign, don't even say anything about the organization. Don't go there and tell the world the organization is doing this, is doing that, for the sake of you understanding the reason why Nnamdi Kanu made that establishment of that organization, because he knows that in his absence, for him to still be relevant, that organization must exist. In his predicament, for him to still be relevant or remain relevant, that structure of the organization must exist, because through that organization, your work is seen through the organization that you were able to put together, and they are also, winning. When the organization writes a letter, they use the letterhead of the organization in representing of our cause and then Nnamdi Kanu. That makes it more professional and wise. If there is no IPOB today, Nnamdi Kanu will be relevant, but not relevant in the international stage. As you know, Ofosisi Adi Emofia. Regardless of how you want to feel about it, I'm telling you the truth, and I don't care how you feel. What my own is to speak the truth. If you like, you go and give a hug to a transformer after you must have wetted yourself. The truth must be spoken. If you like, you hear the truth. If you like, take it away from me. You can easily resign, go and do your stuff. No one need to know. For the interest of that organization that is not established by Chike Doziem, or that is not established by China Sanworu, or that is not established by any of these people that you must have perceived their arrogance, or you must have perceived their, incompetence. Right? So you could easily resign. They will begin to question themselves. Why is everyone resigning? And when you resign, then you have every right, as long as you say, I resign from IPOB, you have every right to do your own organization. Every right. As long as you are not feeding from the organization. That is an intellectual property of the organization. You cannot basically steal the intellectual property of the organization. But you can do your own thing because it's a registered organization. No one stops you from doing your own thing. That is one of the reasons why I joined force to fight Simon Ekpa. Because he started using the intellectual property of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, of the organization, regardless of whether Mazen Nnamdi Kanu approved what he was doing or not. That is a wrong thing to do. You cannot place everybody on a periphery to the point that no one understands what is going on. If Mazen Nnamdi Kanu was behind Simon Ekpa, which is not, tell you that it creates a confusion and undermines the organization that he created and reported to us. That IPOB is a registered organization. So what I am saying is that as long as any Nnamdi Kanu's family members, none of them were actually given a role to play in the organization prior to the time organization was formed, and then prior to the formation of the hierarchical structure of the organization, even to the time Nnamdi Kanu was a free man, he never gave any role to his siblings to play. And he gave role to IPOB, DOS, of certain individual to handle this part. This person handle this part. This person handle this part. Of course, the leadership handle your leadership position or do oversight. And at the end of the day, you turn around and start disregarding that organization. You're disregarding your brother. And if your brother is the one who sent you to disregard the organization, you are literally confusing the world. It makes things childish. It makes things to be childish because your brother cannot tell you to go and undermine his established, rules. There are rules and regulations. He told us you cannot break IPOB. How can you now bring someone outside of the chain of the command of IPOB to now do the oversight and control things in IPOB when this person is not given any role? And that person happens to be your brother. And I know that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu is super educated to make that decisions. And I know the conflict of interest cannot stop a human being from overriding things and messages in order to suit their ambition. So in this regard, you find out that there is nothing makes sense if you come out to fight the organization in public. You might be disgruntled, you might be justified in your anger, but you cannot be justified coming out to fight the organization that made you relevant, the organization that made you, made people listen to you. You can't come out and, challenge that organization. No, do your things underground, fight with them underground, call them and fight with them. You know that ideology that you want to pursue after the organization, pursue it. No one's supposed to stop you. It's your prerogative, as long as you are not actually, a parasite on the organization whilst you are trying to, achieve your own goals. It is not done. So Nnamdi Kanu's siblings are not supposed to be, not supposed to be maneuvering things and then overriding things as if they have the power of attorney of the organization. Organization is not a family business. It is an organization whereby many people have died trying to defend this organization. Many people have died, members of this organization, for the sake of that struggle that is led by their brother. Therefore, to be honest, their brother is not really the person who have paid the highest price in this struggle. There are people who basically throw body, made the man survive. There are people who throw body, make our land be saved as well. We shouldn't forget. We should be realistic. We should stop making ourselves full of ourselves. Mazen Nnamdi Kanu knows very well, hence he has not given any position to his siblings. So what will convince you that his siblings came from nowhere to tell you that you should do things like this, you should do things like that, this way, that way? The wife is telling you a different story. Then you need to basically understand there is a problem. Now that is when the professionalism of the leadership need to, surface. What is it we are not doing right? If Mazen Nnamdi Kanu was here, how would he have handled the situation? This and that. You do that thing that people perceive you are not doing right. You find a way to navigate. If it is not possible, you find a way to communicate to you all people, to your audience, that they may understand this is what we are going through. Don't think that you can, of course, there is command and control, yes. But command and control was abided by without question. When Nnamdi Kanu was there, because Nnamdi Kanu was vocal, Nnamdi Kanu was, visual, Nnamdi Kanu was everything. No one knows the rest of the people except the way he told us, right? So no one is basically understanding what was going on until now. So Nnamdi Kanu now, it was like Nnamdi Kanu now at that point in time. That's what we perceive him to be. And now he later introduced people to us. And after he has issues, that people will introduce to us, they're supposed to be respected. But the same thing, those people, for them to be respected, respect is earned. You are not respecting that person, you are respecting the office occupied by that person. Because some of you might think that you are supposed to be respecting Chike Doziem, or supposed to be respecting China Sanworu, or supposed to be respecting Zurumike. You are respecting the position they own. Maybe intellectually, they are not even more strategic than you. But you respect that position that they possess. If you have advice, you give to them. You're not supposed to come in the open and start attacking that office. You're not attacking these individuals. You're attacking your sovereignty. You're attacking the organization. You're attacking Nnamdi Kanu. And some of you might think that we are trying to protect Nnamdi Kanu. Hence, we are attacking the organization he created. Hence, we were part of the organization. We know that there are some things. You people are accusing each other. This person tell you that you have collected money. There's the other party tell you have collected money, dividing the audience and bringing confusion and granting your enemies access to hold Nnamdi Kanu more, to say that in the next 5 years, if we hold him, this organization people will just give up. We know Igbo people. Everybody is on a survival mode. Just like I started this topic. Everybody is on a survival mode. They will all scatter. Just give them more 3 years. More 3 years, no one scatter. As long as you are fighting, they will say, no, give them another 3 years. We know Igbo men. Igbo men, they wear belly face. That's what they call you. And you want to prove them right. The more you are fighting, the more they are prolonging the holding of Nnamdi Kanu. Because if you destroy yourself, Nnamdi Kanu can equally capitulate. Because if there is no one behind him, he can easily capitulate. Oporo Jesus. He has promises that has been made to him. If that promises that were made to him, if it was made to many of you, you will capitulate. So when in a situation whereby I see that no one is behind me, all the people I'm fighting for, they are out just, gangs of idiots or group of idiots, I will capitulate. Go Baron or Beware Life, five-star life. But when you look back and see, regardless of all the things thrown at your DOS, they are standing. Regardless of what I gave as an order, they are standing, doing the right thing. When he comes out and see the achievement of the DOS, he will be the first person to congratulate the DOS, regardless of disobedience they might perceive or when he is inside. As DOS, you know the organizational structure and strategies, and they should implement it without them being reminded. So if you cannot implement the organizational strategy, that means you are incompetent. And if you are incompetent, you're supposed to resign from that position so that another person takes over. But because he's incompetent does not negate the fact that if you insult him, you are insulting the office, not him. Insulting the office, the initiative of that person who established the organization. So that is it. One thing we should do for ourselves, let us come off from a survival mode. We should honor and respect that organization created by Mazen Nnamdi Kanu if you love him. If you don't love him, follow his brothers, his siblings to be running up and down. Asina ofunne na moburo ofu Chineke. Siblings might have their own ideology outside of their brother, but maybe because they have seen opportunity here to be famous, they can grab it. They might not be sincere like their brother. They might not be, they might not be that strong person like their brother. It happens. Hence, the brother does not have that right to interfere in the activities of the organization established by their brother. It is an insult and a slap to the face of Ndibo, because it is not a family business. And what I am telling you right now, I can say it in front of Mazen Namdekan, right? Because I believe you will understand it. He is a well-educated man and very exposed in the lines of economics or in the lines of comics. He is well exposed for him to understand what I'm saying. But I believe that we all have a role to play. We must protect the organization. We must protect the organization. Even if the leadership are not leading properly, we must act as if they are. Let the organization make it relevant, because that organization is the only reason why Nnamdi Kanu is still relevant in Nigeria and in the whole world. Take it or leave it. And I don't expect you, uneducated to understand, or uninformed people to understand. I expect the people who are very, very exposed and enlightened to understand it. Not everyone, because no matter how much you say or do, people will still do their mind. But most importantly, let's understand the first thing first. And that first thing first is to make sure that we protect that organization that keeps everyone relevant. To be honest, I am not an IPOB member. I know many of you want me to say it long time ago. Many of you want me to, like, when I am actually engaging in this type of topics, they will ask you whether you're an IPOB member. I'm not an IPOB member, but the work I have done for IPOB, you will basically think I am the member of IPOB, but I am not. But when you see an organization that has the potential, and I know the reason why I wasn't. It was proposed to me to be the member. I turned it down. The reason why I turned it down is because there are many things that I've seen that need to be arranged. And they cannot be arranged in the absence of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu. And we cannot bring it up in the absence of Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, because if I am part of an organization, I want the organization to grow. I want the organization to be respected. I want the organization to do things right. So I don't want to be part of those who will be disgruntled at some point. Hence, I said I don't want to be part. There was a point I was, I wanted to, but eventually, due to personal reasons, I am not an IPOB member. I hope many of you who think it is difficult for me to tell you this are happy now. I am not. But many may think I am. I've never been. But I will be one day. I will be one day. It does not mean that I am not going to be. I will be one day. So get it into your head, so that you will, if you believe, you will be asking in the comment if I am not, right? Happy now, yes. But the good thing, the one thing is, the good thing must be done. We must do the needful. Support that organization that made you relevant, right? Support that organization that made you heard by the world. This is the organization under the umbrella of IPOB is when we begin to see march around the world. It is the umbrella that holds everything together. If they destroy it, Nnamdi Kanu will capitulate. Nnamdi Kanu, because no one will stand for him. If you look back, they can even unalive him in there if he refused to capitulate, because there is no one who can come and tell you now, sit at home, and people will adhere to it. Because they know that there are people who are still organized. If one person is falling short, the other will wake up. If the other is falling short, one person amongst them. That's why DOS members are probably not less than 50 people. You cannot tell me from head to the down to the last one, all of them will be compromised at the same time. No. There must be someone, but the most important thing, if you want to fight a broken system in such a system, you should fight it underground so that your enemy will not see access or loophole to make sure they penetrate, because IPOB is today because of Nnamdi Kanu, and Nnamdi Kanu is relevant today because of IPOB. Take it to the bank, you'll get $1 for it. And this is where I am going to leave it. I'm actually running late. I have a meeting. We will do this again, but for now, until we meet again, it is important for you to know not everybody disgruntled sold out, and not everybody sold out is disgruntled. And again, not everyone that is not doing what they're supposed to do or being brave sold out. Some of them are scared, right? But we are not supposed to be scared, because kingdom of God suffered violent, but the violent people take it by force. We are not, I'm not saying that we should go out physical, but we should do diplomatics that we can in order to win and survive. This is the biggest test of this organization. If it stands the test of time, that means Biafra will come. If you destroy IPOB, Biafra will never come. That is the organization that will tell us whether Biafra will come. IPOB is supposed to hold us together and march us to where we are going. As they are, that name only, forget Chike Dozie, forget Nzurumike, forget China Samoro. That name organization consists of many people that you might not know. Just assume that there are good people somewhere. These ones you know they are bad. Use that to hold on until we get to a better, route. Then we enjoy the good road. Until we meet again, stay safe. Bye for now.